Hello everyone, in our last video we created this integration where we concatenated invoice IDs from the source data file within for each with comma in between two invoice ID. After that we passed the comma separated invoice IDs as a parameter to the BIP report to get the payment terms for each invoice. Finally, we created our target file with payment terms from BIP using xslt. Now it will work fine when you have up to 1000 invoices, as BIP report query support up to 1000 values within in clause. But when we have more than 1000 records, then we'll get error. To solve this issue, we'll change the design of the integration so that it will pass maximum 1000 invoices at a time to BIP, even the source data file having more than 1000 records. But before that, if you didn't watch the last video, please do watch, else you may face difficulties to understand this video. You'll find the video link in the description. First of all, let's check that the existing design is working or not for more than 1000 lines. So I'll go to WinSCP, and this is our source data file. Now in this file we have 3450 lines. Now let's run the integration with this file. I'll go back and run the integration. The file name and file path is already provided. I'll click on the run button. So under the for each, you can see it is showing 1000 of 3450 iterations, and in the invoke call BIP you can see we are getting error, and the error is maximum number of expression in a list is 1000. That means BIP report query support 1000 values within in clause. Now we'll edit the same integration to solve this issue. So I'll deactivate this and click on edit. First, we need the number of invoices of the source data file. For that, we'll create a variable vTotalCount. So I'll edit the assign action of assignment 2 and choose edit. I'll click on plus and choose string. I provided the variable name as vTotalCount, and for the value I am not providing anything. To assign the number of invoices from the source data file into that variable, I'll create one more assign action after the read file. And here I'll select that variable. And for the value, I'll expand the read file. Then I'll go to functions and search for the count function. I'll drag the count function, and within the node set, I have to provide the repeating element record of the read file. Now it will provide us the number of invoices in source data file. After getting the total invoice count, we have to split the invoices into group of 1000 invoices and pass to BIP report. For that, we have to use two while loop, one inside another instead of for each. And we need to create two more variables to use in those loop. So let's create those variables. So the first variable will be v underscore group count, and it will refer the total invoices of each group. So we'll assign 1000 for the value. The second variable will be v underscore position, which will be used for the loop iteration. We'll assign the value as 1, and it will be incremented by 1 after each iteration. Now we'll create the first while loop. For that, I'll search with while, and for the condition, I'll select v position here. Operator, I'll choose less than equal to, and the value I'll provide v total count. So the condition is v position less than equal to v total count. That means the loop will exit after the v position crosses the value of total invoice count, which is after getting all the invoices. Within this while, I'll add one more while. And here the condition will be v position is less than the v group count. So I'll select v position, operator will be less than, and here I'll select v group count. As the group count is 1000, that means it will iterate 1000 times. And within this inner loop, we'll concatenate the invoice IDs. So earlier we were doing the concatenation within the for each in this assign action. So I'll cut this and paste it within the inner loop. But here we can see error, we need to correct this. So I'll click on the three dot and edit. So we have to change this invoice ID. Earlier we are getting from the for each. So I'll remove this, and now we'll get the invoice ID from the read file directly, but we have to provide the position here to get the corresponding invoice. So I'll drag the invoice ID. So now this invoice ID is referring all the invoice ID of the source data file. So to get the invoice ID of the corresponding iteration, we have to provide the iteration number that we can get from our variable vPosition. So after the repeating element REC, I'll provide the variable vPosition. But before that, I'll go to functions and search for a conversion function number. It will convert our string variable vPosition into number. So I'll drag this here, and then within bracket I'll provide vPosition. Now click on switch to designer view. Here we'll also choose vPosition to be incremented by 1 after each iteration. So I'll select vPosition, and for the value I'll drag the same vPosition and I'll provide +1. Then outside this inner while loop, I'll create one more assign action, and here I'll choose vGroupCount, and the value I'll provide vGroupCount plus 1000. Now how it will work, let's understand. Suppose we have 3000 records. So in the first iteration of outer loop, the inner loop will iterate 1000 times and concatenate 1000 invoice IDs. And when the vPosition is 1001, then it will exit from the inner loop. Now the value of vGroupCount becomes 2000, as we have provided vGroupCount equal to vGroupCount plus 1000. And in the next outer loop iteration, the inner loop will iterate from 1001 to 2000, as the group count is 2000 currently. And the inner loop condition is vPosition less than equal to vGroupCount. So in that inner loop, it will get the next 1000 invoices, and after that vPosition will be 2001 and the vGroupCount will be 3000 to get the invoices from 2001 till 3000 position for the third iteration of outer loop. Then we'll remove the last comma of the 1000 concatenated invoice IDs of each iteration and pass that to the BIP report, which we are already doing in our last video. So I'll cut these actions, including call BIP map, and the assignment where we are removing the last comma of the concatenated invoice IDs, and paste it here. Now most of the time in the last iteration of the outer loop, we will have less than 1000 records. For example, when the total count is 2500, then in the last iteration the count should be 500. But as per the logic, it will iterate 1000 times from 2001 to 3000. So obviously we will get error in concatenation of the invoice IDs for 2501 to 3000. To fix this, we'll add a switch before the inner loop. So I'll search for switch, and here I'll add the condition as total count less than group count. So if total count is less than group count, then we'll add a assign action, and within that I'll select group count and the value will be total count. So in case of total count is less than group count, then group count will be assigned with the value of total count. Like for this example, total count is 2500, which is lesser than the group count 3000. So we will assign the group count as the total count 2500, so that the inner loop iteration will be 500 times in the last outer loop iteration. Also at the beginning of the outer loop iteration, we have to reset the invoice IDs to null. So I'll select the v invoice IDs and put the value as null. I'll remove this for each as well. I'll also cut the action where we are decoding the BIP report and reading the BIP report output within the while loop. Now we need to accumulate all the BIP output in a single file. For that, we'll use a stage file action after the read BIP to write the BIP output for all the iteration. So I'll search for stage file and provide the name as write BIP. Continue. Instead of read entire file, I'll choose write file. I'll provide the file name as getterms.csv and choose the output directory as /BIP. Here we have to append the BIP report output that we'll get for each iteration. So I'll choose the checkbox append. Continue. Now from the BIP report we are getting the invoice ID and the payment terms. So we have to upload one CSV structure with invoice ID and payment terms as header. So you can see I have created one CSV file with invoice ID, payment terms. So we can upload this file for the structure. Continue. And I'll choose that file. Provide the record and record set name. We can choose the checkbox of column options and choose first column as mandatory. Continue. Finish. Now I'll go to the map of write BIP. From the sources, I'll expand read BIP and map the repeating element G1 to record. Then map invoice ID with invoice ID and payment terms with payment terms. Now outside the loop, we'll read the file that we just created within the loop. So I'll search for stage file and provide the name as read entire BIP. Continue. I'll provide the same file name that we provided for the write BIP to refer that file and the same directory as well, which is /BIP. Continue. Continue. I'll upload the same structure, which is get underscore terms. I'll provide the record and record set name, then go down. We'll not get any header in the file that we just created. So I'll remove the checkbox of column header and check the column option checkbox. Then choose first column as mandatory. And I'll provide the first column name as invoice ID and second column as payment terms. Continue. Finish. Now in the write entire file, we'll get the payment terms from this read entire BIP. So I'll go to the map of write entire file. Currently we are getting error because the value that we are getting for the payment terms is not available now. So I'll remove this and also I'll cut this line of variable creation and save it in Notepad so that we can use it later. I'm doing this because if we use the variable, then we cannot go to the designer section. So I remove the variable. Now I'll go to the designer section. Now under the record, I'll click on payment terms. Now we'll get the payment terms from the read entire BIP response. So I'll drag the payment terms here. And to get the corresponding payment terms within the record, we have to search with invoice ID. So I'll drag invoice ID here and remove till record. So this invoice ID equal to, then here I'll provide our variable invoice ID. Save this. Now go to the code section and now add the line of variable creation that we removed earlier. Now validate this. Now if you are unable to understand this, please refer my last video. You will find the detailed explanation of this. Now save it. Now this is done. We are ready to activate and run our integration. So I'll activate the integration in the debug mode and run the integration. File name and file path is already provided, and in the file we have 3450 records. Now I'll click on the run button. Now you can see the processing completed successfully. Under the outer while loop we can see 4 iterations. As we have 3450 records, so the first 3 iterations will be 1000 records and the last iteration will be 450 records. And if we expand this, the inner loop is having 1000 iterations, but we can see the iterations 999 because in OIC Gen 3 track instances maximum 1000 iterations can be visible. So in the outer loop we can see 1 iteration and inner loop we can see 999 iterations. So total 1000 iterations are visible. The rest of the iterations are working fine, but those are not visible. Now I'll go to WinSCP to check the output file. So this is the output file that is generated invoice data terms. I'll open this and you can see we are getting the payment terms for all the 3450 lines. So this is it for this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button, share this video within your circle. If you have any doubts or any suggestions, put that in the comment section and do subscribe our channel. Thank you.